That should put us back into the live spectrum someplace.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, sorry about the little bit of a delay. This new time slot we have at 7 has been wreaking havoc on some of our schedules, and it's been getting a little difficult to get used to. In any event, I'm Frank Johnson, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, co-host of the show. And to my immediate right is Michael Vasquez, the dragon of the entire 5 boroughs and the Southern Tier and anywhere else in between. New York's only true independent journalist. Mike, hell of a week we've been having this week, huh?
Kind of, sort of. I mean, as this summer has been, we're winding up with the summer, about to hit into fall. And it's been a roller coaster, but this is kind of like the slowest week we've had since April.
Well, I think it's slow in the number of topics, but not in the severity of topics. I mean, if we look at everything from just starting with the hurricane of this past week, and I'm down here in the throes of it. I'm in North Carolina, and I'm 2 hours away, hour and a half away from everywhere that really got hit. I mean, we got hit here with just a tremendous amount of rain, some wind. We've had power outages, cable, television, telephone outages and stuff like that. But for the most part, the Charlotte area of North Carolina has been left unscathed. However, you travel up north and west of me, an hour and a half to 2 hours, it is absolutely devastating what's happening in North Carolina. The destruction. I can only speak for North Carolina. I know that Georgia got hit. I know the parts of West Virginia got hit pretty good. But the majority of news that we're getting is, well, that I'm personally getting, is all North Carolina based, because that's the hub of our news coverage. For me to get coverage outside of here has been very difficult because the news crews can't make it into where the damage is. We're relying solely on people's cell phone cameras and what, the citizen journalist is being able to report, with minor inclusions from government entities as to, what information they can provide. But it's, now, you and I both lived in the Southern Tier in 2006 through 2011 up in New York.
Right.
You and I both lived firsthand through the flooding up there. And we saw, entire towns of, 5 to 10 to 12,000 people decimated with nothing left. I mean, the roads, the pavement peeled up, and the house, everything was gone. Stretches of destruction. And here we are with 2006. We're like, all right, this is a once in 100-year storm. And then 4 years later, we got nailed again, and, we hadn't even recovered from the first storm, and we got hit again in 2011.
True.
The level of devastation that we saw in the Southern Tier, I think, pales in comparison to what happened in North Carolina.
And that's bad. And I mean, I have video from 2011, the 100-year, 500-year floods that took place. But it's not the first time that we've seen these kinds of devastating storms before. It's sad to see that our government hasn't learned anything, because it's not that we get regular hurricanes. We do. We get severe hurricanes. We've had severe hurricanes over the last 50 years. You would think they would have learned by now, but instead they would rather spend the money saying, oh, global warming, that's making everything worse. No, it's just a cycle of the world. The planet's always had these bad storms, these bad weather events. You would think we would have been adjusting to this. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you have to look at the reason for it. If government was actually there to aid and assist people in what when we have, situations like this, that's what they would do. But they don't. What they try to do is, instead of helping the people, they try to capitalize on the disaster to promote their own public policy agendas. And whoever it is that's giving them their donations and funding their campaigns, oh, a hurricane hit? Well, this is the message we want you to push. To hell with actually helping the people that have been hit by the devastation. No, we need a straw man. We need you to talk about global warming. We need you to talk about polar bears and the ice caps. And we need to talk about this and about that and the frequencies. Look, these things happen. They happen regularly through the planet. There's going to be some place that never got hit with a hurricane, for the last 500 years, that next year is going to get completely decimated by one. And it's got nothing to, it's weather. It's an uncontrollable factor of living on this planet, is that weather changes. Weather patterns change. When you have topography changes, when you've got, oh, well, look how many people we lost in this hurricane versus 100 years ago. Yeah, well, your population center has, grown by 15 times the multitude in that 100 years. Of course, you're going to have more death related.
1,000 people to 1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, just maybe there's 1 million people in the space that there used to be 1,000. I think the the toll is going to be more expensive. Oh, it's so the money. We've never had so much money. Well, you have more businesses, more cars, more buildings, more people. Yeah, and all their possessions. Of course, there's going to be. But it's those silly things. And then what makes it worse is, and then we have Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. Where were they? They didn't go there until Trump went there with support, with supplies, pretty much ahead of FEMA, already helping the people. And because they took that politically, and they said, okay, well, now it's political and it's an election year. So now Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had to go. Why did Kamala Harris have to go? She's not the president. Joe Biden, I can get, he goes down there. Fine. So you got a former president and you got a current president. Fantastic. Why is Kamala there? That's pure politics. She's politicking on the back of the suffering of people. And it's so obvious because they had no intention of being there anytime soon until Trump showed up. And then they had to be there the next day. They had to come right afterwards. Guys, you should have been there in the first place. You know what I mean? And they're doing that instead of just helping people in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, again, political points. That's what they all want to score. Jan, how are you, dear?
I'm good. How are you guys?
All right, Jan, you and I spoke a little bit over the week to see how each other was doing. How did everything work out by you guys with the storm?
Not actually. I mean, it's been raining pretty much every day. Today was actually our first break. I mean, it hasn't rained all day, but so a lot of our rivers are up a lot. I mean, luckily thankfully where I live on a hill that goes like this. So, when we had the flooding here before I moved here in 2016, this property and the ones around us on this side of the street, we're lucky. But down the hill, the Greenbrier River is way up and cresting, and it nothing nowhere near what I'm seeing online in Ashbury and a lot of places in Tennessee, and it reminds me a lot of when I moved to Louisiana after Katrina. The devastation that Katrina did.
Most power outages here, isn't it?
Huh?
It's mostly power outages.
Yeah, a lot of power out here. My question, my biggest takeaway from this so far, is not only the loss of life and the suffering that these people are feeling right now, is the fact that, where's Biden and Kamala? Kamala actually ignored a question about the aftermath of the hurricane and what people are going through.
No, they ignored it because, one, she has no idea, partially because she's not supposed to. The president is. That's his job, not hers. And she would have been well within her rights, and it would have been a fine answer to say, that's the president. He's doing what he needs to do. I have different duties. I have different responsibilities.
I get
Perfectly
that,
fine
but at
answer.
the same time, she could have also said, you know, my heart goes out to the people suffering right now, and the president is working his best right now to do what is needed.
See, that's a separate thing. That's her being genuine. That's her being a human being, actually caring about people, which doesn't require any position to do that. But she didn't. But she doesn't care. She's focused on, she wants to win, and it's transparent in everything that she does, which is why it's so fake, why it's so bad when she is doing things like today with Joe Biden, traveling around with him, when it's unnecessary, when it's purely for a photo op, and it cheapens everything, and it's a distraction from what needs to be done. I find that very upsetting.
I think one of the other things that really upset me is today it came out that several donations, like in Tennessee, because FEMA has landed now,
Finally,
went to a couple of these places where the donations were being handed out and said, you can't do that no more. You have to leave.
what?
Yeah, FEMA took over these donations.
Wait a minute.
And it's
If
not
I'm
the
handing out
first-
water, they can't stop me.
It's not the first time that FEMA has done this when an incident like this has happened.
See, my only interaction with FEMA was back in the Northridge earthquake. I was 5 miles from the epicenter there, and they were completely useless. This is back in the 90s. I think it would have been under Clinton, as I recall. This is like 94, I think it was, the Northridge earthquake happened. And FEMA didn't show up until after everything was done. And all they did was give out checks. And you could say you lost anything and everything you wanted to say, and they would have written out a check to you for no matter what the amount was. My opinion of FEMA is very low.
Well, my question is, who in the hell are these people? I don't care government or not. Who the hell are these people to come into a place where citizens of the United States have pulled together to help other citizens of the United States and come in and say, you can't hand those out. That's our responsibility now. And we're going to do it in a totally different way than what you've been doing it.
No, see, that's the problem. And that's why I'm saying FEMA is completely a failure. And we keep seeing these disasters. That's my point. We keep seeing these disasters, and they are a failure every time we see them at these disasters. They're always trailing well behind any other group or individual trying to give aid, and they do it in the worst way possible. There's no reason. First of all, they don't have the jurisdiction to stop any American citizen from giving out aid to anyone. Period. Full stop there. Second thing is they're doing it less effectively. Real simple. Give out the aid that FEMA has. If someone else is doing something else, leave them alone. If FEMA is going to give everybody, I don't know, a can of soup, and somebody over here wants to give everyone a steak as well, let them. That has nothing to do with what you're doing, FEMA. So impeding the American people from their rights and their ability to help other Americans, that's insane. People need to be fired if that is happening.
Well, you got to remember, Ross.
Like I said,
what Jan is saying is correct. I saw firsthand. I saw firsthand in Sydney, New York, when they had the floods over there, because I had ventured. oddly enough, I don't know how, I didn't know the area well enough from anything, but I knew where the trails were, and I knew where my Jeep could get me, and I managed getting into some of the other towns around us to try and help out as best I could, and with people that I knew if they needed stuff, I would bring things and everything. And they had church groups in Sydney, that FEMA was pretty much chasing away from doing what they were doing. And part of it is accounting. Part of it is accounting. You got to remember, FEMA works on a budget. And if they don't use whatever is in their budget this year, they're not going to get the same amount for next year.
I know.
So look, for them, it's a bureaucratic nightmare whenever FEMA gets involved. They're going to step in, they're going to step on toes because they want to run the show because the word federal is in their title. And then when you can include it with emergency, and when government has an emergency, nothing else matters. Management, we know government loves management and how well they do it. That's what they're all about. So it doesn't surprise me that they would be taking, I'm watching video of guys on horses that have a trail of donkeys behind them. And the donkeys all have like these little 5-gallon cooler chests on them filled with dry ice.
Right.
And they're running insulin up into the mountains in Asheville, North Carolina, to diabetes patients, so that because the insulin has to be kept refrigerated. It's one of the medications you need to have refrigerated. These guys are doing it. These aren't the pharmacists. These aren't government agencies. These aren't the police department, EMS workers. These are farmers that took it upon themselves to say, what does our community need? Where are the resources and where do we need to deliver them? And they're doing it.
Right.
Wait till FEMA finds out these guys are there. They'll have somebody come over there and shoot the donkeys.
Probably. And kill God knows how many people because they're denying them the medication they need. That's the problem with our government. We have too much.
Right. Because each person is going to have to get categorized, the way Kamala said it. Certain people are going to need to be helped first based on a certain criteria.
Well, yeah, those were her words. That was the Florida hurricane that back in 22? If I remember correctly, that was a hurricane that hit in 22. And she's like, no, we'll give aid to those according to their skin color first. She was absolutely racist. And that's their policies.
Yeah, we want to make sure that the disenfranchised demographics are taken care of before anybody else are.
Yeah, regardless of
the need of the demographic.
Which you would think is the number one answer, regardless of anything else. Who needs the help? Not what color are you? But this is the way that they look at government, which is, again, this is why we have too much government. It is too bureaucratic. It is too large. It is inefficient. It is ineffective. We need to shrink it. Meanwhile, we're hearing, in both debates, we're hearing from the Democrats, they're saying we need to have even more government. It has to be even bigger government. It has to have even more control over every aspect of your individual life. It fails now. Why do we want something that fails now at even the simple things to have even more power? They can't even do the post office right. And we want them to have power over making sure that diabetics get their insulin on time during a state of emergency. No, absolutely not.
Well,
it's insane to me.
Again, this is what happens when we delegate authority instead of regulating authority.
Yeah. You would think they'd be happy that people are stepping up and doing these things. The news media would be promoting the fact that people are stepping up in this manner to help their friends, because that's what naturally happens. When I was in California, and I was living in California, the Northridge earthquake, and I can tell you, I never saw FEMA, but I can tell you what the neighborhood did. We got all of our money together, the cash we had on hand. We got a couple of cars and trucks. We drove 2 hours out from, we were in the West Hills area. We drove about 2 hours north and east to a couple of towns, got a bunch of meat, a bunch of, hot dogs, hamburgers, buns. We drove back to the neighborhood. We split up the meat. Everyone pulled out their hibachis and their little grills, and we made food for everyone. Never once did we say, where's the government? How's the government going to help us? Not once did someone say, hey, well, we got to give the food to the black kids down the block, or we got to give it to the single woman living up here. No one gave a damn. The food was there. We got the food together. We split it up together. We took care of everyone in the neighborhood together. No one gave a damn whose color was who. No one asked what your political preference was. No one gave a damn about anything except we're all dealing with this earthquake and its consequences. That's what happens. That's what's supposed to happen.
Well, we had that storm that ravaged New York a few years back, Sandy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that went through that. And a week after that storm, Lori and I attended a wedding of my friend John. And we met a couple, was John's best man and his wife, that lived in a community out in New York that was devastated by the storm. They had seawater in at the rafters on the first floor. Houses got washed away and everything else, and they lost everything. Every possession that they had was gone. And they were telling us at the wedding, well, they were talking to Lori. He said, telling us about what had happened. And Lori comes over and she points and she says, you see that couple over there, John's best man, his name's also John. Says, tell me what happened. Yeah, they lost everything. They can't do this. They can't get supplies. They can't get this. They can't get that. They're living in a hotel 50 miles away. They have 2 sons that have special needs. The whole community's wiped out. Nothing's coming in and out. So I went over to her and I said, I need you to do me a favor. This is what I said. What's the most important thing that you need up and functioning in your house right now? And she says, probably the kitchen. We can get by living in the house with just ripped down to the studs, but we need a place to be able to cook and congregate and, everything else. I said, when you get back down to the city, send me the measurements of your house, take a couple pictures, and I'll see you next week. And I'm 250 miles away in upstate New York. They send me their pictures. I go over to my distributor because we were in upstate. We didn't get hit with Sandy. I bought all brand new cabinets, all brand new appliances, sheetrock, plaster, paint, electrical equipment, mud, nails, studs, vinyl, countertop material, everything I could possibly put into a brand new kitchen. Loaded it all up into my truck and my trailer and drove down to New York City and went over to the house and with their help, we gutted the house out and we rebuilt their kitchen. And that kitchen served as a hub for the entire community over the next few months while they tried to rebuild because nobody could get anything. This family was cooking for the entire neighborhood because there were no other facilities anywhere else that was able to do it. Nobody was able to store food. They were able to do it. No one was able to prepare food. They were able to do it. Nobody had a roof over their head where the community could meet and plan and organize and everything. They were able to do it. It just took one house to get back on track to help an entire community get back on track. But while I was driving down there, I was so struck by the desperation that I saw. And here I am. I'm driving down in my 2002 Dodge Ram quad cab 4x4, beautiful truck. Trucks, I got my 16-foot trailer on the back, and it's loaded 10 feet high, strapped down, wrapped in tarps, everything else. I have people running out to me on the streets with bundles of cash. I will give you $50,000 for the truck and everything in it. Do people want to? And I'm sitting there, I'm seeing people. Okay, this is fun. You got some people out here that are offering to buy stuff. Wasn't all that far down the road where I had people demanding my stuff. And there is that stark contrast. Like, okay, here's all of these people are equally desperate, but what measure will they go to resolve that desperation? And you have people that are out there working hand in hand, trying to help the communities, working together, trying to do things, trying to bring things together. And then you have vultures that as soon as things happen, they look and they either don't care enough about the circumstances to understand that the people that they're hurting are also their members of their own community, or they're just so self-entitled that they don't care who they hurt, they don't care who they rob, they don't care what they do, so long as they get theirs.
No, there's a
And
lot of that. Yeah, there's a lot of that mentality.
There's a lot of that. I haven't seen any of it here. Every person that I have seen and I have spoken to, and I have relatives that live right here in the area, and we're trying. I have an aunt I can't find right now.
Oh.
I have an aunt and her grandson. I can't find either one. I can't track them down. We don't know what's happening with them, and I can't get into the area to look.
Hopefully, it's just the phones are dead.
Hopefully, I'm not optimistic at this point. There's a lot of reasons why, but my cousins that do live in the area, I did manage to get to them, and she's informing Lori and I of the lengths that her community have gone through to help one another. Just amazing things people are doing to help one another. People have lost everything but the clothes on their back, and they're picking up shovels to dig through somebody else's land to try and find their family members, to try and find something at the end of the cloud. Try to find that silver lining, try to find that hope, trying to find something. And I see that, and I'm like, it's amazing how much humans will sacrifice after they have lost everything else and they have nothing else to sacrifice. That they will put all of their own troubles behind them to go help somebody else who may even be less troubled than they are. And I say that's community. That's community. And I hate saying that I've been able to see it from, see both sides of it, but man, you wish to see one side more than you do the other. It's a damn shame what some people do during these things. You say, oh well.
I thought it was interesting too. I don't know if you guys saw it. I believe it was in North Carolina. When the sheriff came out and did his little press conference and said people have a right to shoot and we ain't going to step in.
No, I didn't see that story.
Yeah, he said if people intend to come in and loot, he says you have to understand we're not going to be sending EMS. We're just going to send the coroner. We're just going to let the citizens do what they need to do to protect themselves and what's left of their property.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. Because that's, what kind of scum goes in. I really have no pity for the scum that would take advantage of people in such desperate need to try and get monetary gain, to steal the few things that people have left.
You see this shit all over Facebook. Well, we got a van and we're running over to help. So everybody, if you've got donations or you want to send cash, give it to us and we'll bring it over there. Who are you? And it's listed anonymous member, or it has some name, and you go and you look at the profile, and the profile was made yesterday.
Yeah, of course. And I never trust things like that. But I mean, you have to be diligent to pay attention, because there are people who will take advantage of every emergency, every catastrophe. And we have more of those people today than we did 20 years ago and 20 years before that. I don't know if that's because there's just more people, or because the culture is nurturing people like that who believe in, their self-gratification above all others, that are looking to constantly game the system or steal from others rather than earn for themselves. I don't know what the answer is, but we do have more of them today. We have to be more diligent. And I have no respect for those people. So I'm glad to hear that there's stories like that. And User Has Been Banned pointed out there was the opposite of that happening. And he has this, the city of Okeechobee in
Yes.
Florida came out and they illegally passed an ordinance just before the hurricane hit saying, well, you're going to be banned on whether or not you can have your firearms and ammunition. And there is a backlash happening to that. I can see it in the news right now. Obviously, you can't do that to people. You can't just, it's the same mentality, in my mind, it's the same mentality as those who are looting, is going to someone and saying, and now I'm going to strip away your rights. We have this emergency, so I'm going to take away your rights. Your rights don't apply in this emergency. No, that's not the case. Oh, we're the government, so the government's more important than you in an emergency. That's not what the Constitution says. That's not what any state constitution says. That's just wrong.
User pointed it out while you were talking before I could talk, but they didn't pass an ordinance before Katrina, but after Katrina and the military came in, they started going door to door to confiscate guns.
Yeah, also illegal. That's a violation of that's the Fourth Amendment. I mean, that's the whole point.
Because God forbid if you want to protect your own property from looters.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't have a right to come. We literally have it in the amendments. It was part of the reason why our country was created. You cannot take a military or an agent of the government and have them come into your home unannounced without proper cause to take your property. Cannot be done. It is explicit. It's insane.
Well, Kamala says she could walk right in.
Oh, yeah. I saw the video of Kamala saying, oh, you may be a lawful gun owner and you have your gun secured in your locked up home, but the government's going to come through the door and take it anyway.
Sanctity of your locked up home.
Yeah, that is insane. And she goes, but I'm a gun owner. No, you're a witch. That's insane. You can't say, I mean, it makes no sense at any level of what she said.
But she can shoot the intruder coming into her home.
She has Secret Service that'll shoot him for her because she's well protected. Her family's well protected, but and she's a gun owner. She has a gun, but I can't have the same entitlements that she has because she's elected, which somehow makes her what, a super genius? No, I don't think so. It's insane. The levels of disrespect.
I think something we should talk about too that's going to play hand in hand with the recovery from this devastation is that now our ports are on strike.
Well, that was going to happen anyway. The strike was coming anyway, and that's political. It had nothing to do with the storm.
Well,
I understand that. I'm saying that it's playing a part now in the recovery of a lot of these communities.
Well, the dock workers, I hate saying it over and over again because Americans have such short memories when it comes to things. But I would really like to see the dock workers pay a price for this because, I understand they're in the throes of a strike and they're threatening this, they're threatening that because apparently they're not getting enough money for what they do. But you would think in the interest of just being an American, and you would think that the president of the union, instead of coming out today and telling everybody how he is currently going to control whether or not he breaks our economy, he's going to decide whether or not to break our economy, because without the dock workers, he can grind everything to a halt to make sure everybody loses their job. So instead of him coming out and saying that, he would have probably gotten a whole hell of a lot more public support if he came out and said, listen, we're in the throes of this strike. and the deadline was looming. I have spoken to our members and we have decided collectively, in the interest of maintaining, support for the Americans that have been hit by this storm, we are going to postpone our oncoming strike for a period of time so that we can make sure that the people that are in desperate need of the materials they need to start rebuilding their lives have them. We don't want to put our interests ahead of theirs, but we still want to make sure that Americans know that we have our interests that we have to be concerned with. So as soon as things start to get back to normal, we're going to go back on strike. That they would have garnered themselves so much support through the public, but instead they decided to say, no, it's not enough that the average walk-on employee before overtime is making $90,000 a year. We want a 77% raise.
Okay, but Frank, you're missing something, because they don't care about the opinion of the American people.
Know.
It's all, they would never say what you said. I think what you said is great. I could even hear them saying, hey, we're going to restrict everything except supplies going to the South to help deal with this, and all other goods. So the West Coast, yeah, that's shut down. The Northeast, shut down. But we're going to help everyone, and we're going to keep the ports in the South open.
I'm saying they could have garnered themselves a lot more support if they were magnanimous and said, okay, listen, this is what we're going to do. But they shot themselves in the foot by putting their interests against everybody else.
But here's the thing, they didn't, because they know if they did that, the amount of time it would be necessary for this to for things to normalize, to help the people that need the help, is going to take them too far into October, possibly into the beginning of November. They're going to miss the election window, which is their leverage. So they had to do it now, because this is their political leverage. And because they don't care about the people, they care about the politics. And I'm not saying that the individual workers don't care. I'm sure they do. I'm sure many of them have family that's affected. But the leadership, the leadership, they don't give a damn. And that's why they're doing it now. And that's why they won't pause it. This is why they won't take this into consideration, because this is the key political window they have to take advantage of. Otherwise, it's useless. No one cares about the strike. It's not going to have the impact you want.
I think this could be a wake-up call to a lot of people, too, about how much we rely on overseas manufacturing. I remember the port shutting down when we were kids. We didn't have these devastating effects on us, though, because America was a huge manufacturer.
Well, this isn't the first time docks have impacted us in that.
No.
A good problem with the supply chain issues that we saw during COVID was because of California ports.
Well, yeah, they were all backed up. So was the Gulf of Mexico.
And it wasn't backed up because of COVID. That was the excuse that was used. It was backed up because California changed their rules and wouldn't allow trucks built before 2011 to drive in their state. Yeah,
it was climate change. Yeah, it was their climate change policies. I'm familiar. I know. I actually was working as a dispatcher for a little while in there, and I knew several truckers before and after, and they told me about that. Yeah, no trucker wanted to go to no trucker wanted to go to California before the lockdowns because of the regulations and the cost, and it just got worse after.
Yeah, but that is the biggest problems with the supply chain. It wasn't COVID. It was the California rules.
Well, again, 90% of the problems that we see in the world are all man-made.
Yeah. Almost always.
Governmental. A good majority of them are governmental.
Yeah. The larger the government, the worse the government is.
Mm-hmm.
And we are just growing government. And this is true. Any country, point at any government in any time and anywhere in the world, and you see the same repeated thing. The larger the government, the more overbearing the government is on the individual life, and the less efficient and effective that government is every single time. Doesn't matter what type of government it is, doesn't matter where it is in the world or what time period you look at. That is always the case. It gets larger, it gets less efficient, less effective, and more overbearing every single time.
Well, all I gotta say is go out and buy your toilet paper, because I already hear there's a toilet paper shortage.
Again,
Yeah.
Yep. People are
That-
worried about the supply chain, so everybody's out taking the toilet paper off the shelves.
Yeah,
oh God.
My sister-in-law was at Walmart not Walmart, Sam's Club earlier today, and confirmed that bottled water is all gone. Even the foo-foo flavored bottled water, and there's no toilet paper, paper towels, or napkins, facial tissue. Nothing. It's all gone already.
Crazy. It's
People
funny.
wonder why I have like we have like 6 big closets here in the house that are meant for like blankets and towels and this and that. And you open up all my closets and they're full of food, they're full of housewares, everything that you need, perishables. At least we're somewhat prepared.
Yeah, but I don't understand why people. It's amazing when you see how badly our generations in America are, that they're thinking about, okay, water, smart, that's good, and toilet paper. It's like, that's not the supplies you need to survive. And it's only because, and I was thinking about this earlier today anyway, but we are in such a pampered place in history that people think the most important thing that they need to survive through a crisis is they need toilet paper. Are you kidding me? Think about any other time in history, anywhere in the world, and that's like the least. You need food, people. You need food. You need heat for the winter. You need warmth for the summer. You need to be able to see at night. There's a lot of things you might need: clothing and the ability to clean those clothes. Obviously, again, water. You need a lot of things to prep for. Toilet papers, yeah, it's important, but it's not that. It is so low on the priority list.
Well, listen, think about this. If you don't have any food, you'd probably, after a while, you're not going to need the toilet paper.
You're not going to need anything after a while. It's because we're so pampered right now, and a lot of the problems we have. The reason why we're giving government so much power, because people think, well, the government will come and the government will fix it before it gets too crazy. So all I need to do is take care of the toilet paper and they'll fix it before it gets that bad. No, they won't. No, they won't. Just like the people in Louisiana, what was it, in New Orleans, in the stadium. The government's going to come. They're going to take care of everything. Yeah, wait for that. See how well that works out for you. It isn't. Just be self-reliant, folks. We need to be more self-reliant. And if we're being more self-reliant, we will have less government intervention. They go hand in hand.
Well, speaking of which, I'm going to try and speak to him next week. We have a gentleman that I met who is a special operations, Green Beret, Navy SEAL. This guy's done it all.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a book called The Bug-In Book. Everybody always talks about having a bug out bag and, what you need in case you have to leave your home, what you need to get on the road, what you need to survive, and all the rest of that. He's got a little bit of a different take on things as far as, leaving, what constitute you an emergency large enough for you to have to leave your home. And if it's not these specific things, your safest place to be is at home. That's your safest place to be. It's the one thing that the area that you can control what goes on inside of it and what you maintain to keep a certain lifestyle. And the book he wrote is called the Bug-In Book. And we're going to have him as a guest on the show in a couple of weeks to discuss, some of the tactics that that he employs. Lori and I have been reading the book. It's very difficult to get, by the way. It took Lori over a month to get a copy of this book. We don't know why. I wonder. But we have the book, and it was a lot of the tactics he employs are a lot of the things I was like, oh, we already do that. We already have that. We already have this. We already have that. But we're gonna have a dedicate an hour to this in a couple of weeks to just give people a lot of information, what they need, so that in the event that you have some sort of a national disaster or you have some sort of security situation, governmental, whatever the case is, you can use your imagination. Just some tools that you can have at your disposal to be better prepared for that kind of situation.
Well,
Easy.
well, that would be good because we need it. We're going to need it after November, first week of November. I did want to bring up something before we switch to anything else real quick. User has been banned. One of the members in the audience brought up that he believes that the strike, the Teamster strike right now, is in part about AI, robotics, taking away the jobs of the dock workers, and they want more protections. And I've heard a little bit about that, but I really think that's the boogeyman of the current day. Everybody screams, AI is going to take your job. Robotics is going to take your job. And there are aspects of that that are true. I mean, look at McDonald's. We are seeing they did go and automate a lot of the fast food, where you have computers that are flipping the burgers and making the fries, that are taking the orders. So if it's doing something that mundane, and we do know that there are robots that assist right now, if not actually control unloading ships onto trucks. We have seen that. We do know there's electric trucks that are trying to be built to have that are self-driving. So to an extent, I understand that fear, but I also believe it's somewhat overblown. It's the perfect boogeyman because it is. There are elements of it that are absolutely true, but we're nowhere near where it's not tomorrow they're going to flip the switch and everybody's replaced. We're nowhere near that. We're not even close to trying to do something like that. They're so far ahead of the potential of that even becoming something that it's just the boogeyman that gives them the leverage, the justification to say, well, we've got to do it now because AI is the danger now. No, it's not. No, it's not. One day, could someone with the right intention do that? Sure. We're looking at a decade, maybe two, before that's possible, realistically, because not only do you have to develop the software and test the software, make sure it works, you also have to implement it. It's going to take, you got to construct it, you got to build it, you got to make sure it works, and then it goes. We're a long way from any of that. It's not just AI and then tomorrow gone.
AI on any infrastructure like docks and stuff like that is at minimum 5 years out and probably closer to 10.
Yeah, I definitely
before
think
it could even really be piloted.
Yeah, there's so much that has to go into that. So at this point, while I think, yes, I understand the fear, it's the fact that it's the boogeyman that lets them realistically justify why they have to do it now. Not that the fear is, it's not that it's not credible, it's not realistic near term. They don't have to do that now. That's not the boogeyman today. It's just convenient because everyone's heard AI, bad guy. And that just gives them that justification. I think it's really an overreach. Again, one day, and I know user is mentioning that Rotterdam doesn't do nearly, New York State by itself has far more shipping. I mean, most of the ports in the United States, any of the ports in the United States, do more shipping in a week than you see in a month in Rotterdam. They're not, the comparison is night and day. They may say, oh, it works so well here. Yeah, you get 3 ships a week. We get 3 ships a day. Maybe, the scale is important. And that's a big difference when you have the scale. But I do understand exactly what you're saying, users and band. I understand what their fear is, and I understand they're testing it, but it's still at least a decade away, if not more. We have time. There's no reason to use that excuse other than it justifies ignoring the emergency and the other problems we have right now. And it's a distraction from people saying this is purely about politics, because it's purely about politics. At the end of the day, it's all about politics. Everything else is just a distraction from the political game that's going on, in my opinion. Obviously. But I just wanted to throw that in there because I thought that was important to also mention.
Okay, so while we're dealing with our citizens recovering from a natural disaster, we have an open border. Biden has decided that he's expanding the refugee admissions to multiple continents
See,
bring
here I
in
thought you.
more people.
See, I thought you were going to go over. Since we're talking about disasters, I thought you were going to go to the VP debate. But okay, Biden wants. Well, we know at the end why he's expanding.
Well, this is another disaster. So,
Well, yeah. Well, he's expanding
fair.
the number of illegal aliens in America, just like the bill that they keep talking about. It would have solved everything. No, it would have just slowed down the number of illegal aliens entering America, not stopped
it wouldn't even slowed it down.
According to the way it was written in the original reasoning, it was supposed to slow it down. That's what they wrote in the bill. But here's the thing. We now know, because Kamala Harris told the American people during her interview with ABC News Philadelphia. Most people didn't see that interview, but she did have the interview. I have it on video. I did cover it. She told us very clearly, part of the open border policy is ultimately a path to citizenship.
Yeah.
This is all about adding a slave base, a dependent slave base of voters that will always vote Democrat for fear that if they don't, they will lose their citizenship or their status and they will be deported. This is how they get a dependent slave, second-class citizenry. And that's why they want these open borders. That's why they're inviting people from more and more countries to come into America without being properly vetted first, and why we have 378 plus known and suspected terrorists in America, a 1,300% increase from 2021. It's the reason why we have 13,000 known convicted murderers running around in America at this time, while we have gangs from Venezuela and Guatemala that are taking over apartment blocks and attacking police officers in the broad daylight at 42nd Street in America, why we know that there have been illegal aliens that have killed women at colleges and other places throughout America. This is all on their head. They want to maintain their power. The path to citizenship and increasing the number of illegals is the means to do it. Meanwhile, America is suffering. That is, again, that is the definition of evil.
Well, let's actually look at this. Okay. Democrats, regardless of what they say, Democrats have always supported slavery. Always. Okay. It was Democrats that fought, or the party that turned into the Democratic Party, that fought to get the 3/5 added into the Constitution, and to keep okay. There was a good part of the northern states that when the Constitution was written, they wanted to abolish slavery right at that time. However, the southern states decided that they needed it for their economy. And in order to keep things united, the founders decided to put in a couple of stipulations along those lines. It didn't actually condone slavery, but it made it so that initially slavery couldn't be outlawed by Congress.
It was historically known as the Virginia Compromise.
Right. Okay, now go on further down the road, and it was literally Democrats that pushed to keep slavery alive, and which eventually led to the Civil War. And it was Democrats that caused the Civil War to start. It was Democrats that fought against equal rights. It was Democrats that fought against giving blacks the right to vote. It's historically been Democrats that fought against giving women the right to vote. If you look at their current day policies, Democrats are still pushing for slavery. Open borders is another form of slavery via human trafficking and other sources. If we look at welfare and entitlement programs, those are forms of slavery because you are becoming a slave to the state. Okay, regardless of how you want to look at it, the Democrat Party is and always has been a party of slavery.
Right.
Okay, I mean that's all we really need to say about it. That's what their whole open border agenda is they want control. They want to control and make everybody that is not an elite a slave.
Well, that's why you have more government. That's why you have the illegal aliens coming in. That's why they keep whittling away. This weekend, I think you guys may have seen, John Kerry was at the WEF. John Kerry is the former senator. He's a former Secretary of State under the Obama-Biden administration. Biden brought him back, made him the green energy czar. And for some reason, he went to the WEF, the World Economic Forum, to talk about free speech, about the First Amendment. And in that conversation at the WEF, talking about free speech, he says that Democrats have to get rid of the First Amendment, that they have to destroy the First Amendment because they can no longer effectively control the way people hear the news, and they can no longer control who is telling the stories about the news. And so they have to get rid of the First Amendment so that they can protect, quote unquote, people from disinformation, so that they can get their messaging out, so that they can maintain control. And this is, again, part of that same mentality. Grow the government, overwhelm the government, suppress the people in every means that you can. And this, John Kerry, is just another aspect of that. This is something that Kamala Harris supports. This is something that Joe Biden has supported. Barack Obama has supported this. We're hearing it from John Kerry. He thinks it's so...
And we heard it during the debate.
We heard it during the debate. Yes. They said it again. As well as saying that same mentality is also the same argument they use against the Second Amendment, saying that, as we were talking about earlier with Frank, where they say, yeah, they're going to come into your home and take your firearms. It's the same logic. Suppress, deny, obey.
Well,
and they're being
They
upfront.
believe that government is the supreme authority and the people have no authority over government. That is their belief.
That is what they said. Yeah. You going to say something, Jan?
Well, I was going to say, and this is where I get pissed, because I started yelling at the TV last night with, I am so sick of this disinformation crap. Who the hell are you to tell me what I can believe and not believe?
They're the government, and supposedly they can pick and choose the truth sayers. So they picked the New York Times, even though the New York Times has fired how many of their reporters for plagiarizing or just making up their own stories, and the denial of the Hunter Biden laptop, the insistence that Russia collusion was true, even though they got all these things wrong. They have all these people who just fabricate the truth. But the New York Times is a noted credible source of news. What about NBC? How many people have they fired for also plagiarizing and creating their own news stories? But they're considered also absolutely credible. CNN and their bias that has been on display, bending over backwards, trying to make sure that Kamala Harris looks as good as possible. But, they're the approved sources. And the fact that, as Frank was mentioning, there are people in America telling each other, hey, this is what's going on in my local community because there's a flood. Oh, you have to be silenced because FEMA might want to say something and you may not say what FEMA says, even though you're the local person. You know the community. You know what people need. You actually know how to reach the local community, but you have to be silent because the federal government hasn't decided that you are approved. There are so many levels of evil that we're talking about today that are affecting our nation.
They've done the same thing with science. Believe the science, and then you believe the science around COVID. Believe in the 6-foot rule. Believe in mask work, and then we come to find out that all that was BS and made up by Fauci.
It was never true. We know for a fact the WHO, UCLA Medical, the CDC, the studies are in. And science is the quest of questions, not the absoluteness of answers. There's always a question. Nothing is an absolute because we don't know it all. And you should ask questions. That's what science is about. It's not about believe the science and just never question it. That would be a religion. That's not what science is. It's not a religion where it demands absolute belief. Science is asking a question eternally, always asking a question and questioning the results you receive. And even when you get confirmation, if you get confirmation on your theory, you continue to ask questions.
Well, and they're doing it now with the economists. Believe our economists. Don't believe their economists. Our economists know more than theirs do.
Yeah.
Well, same goes with climate change.
Well,
okay, there are a lot of scientists now that are saying that there is no evidence supporting the claim that climate change is caused by humans.
No, absolutely not. It's not. The planet has been hotter without human beings. It has been colder without human beings.
And that's exactly what they are saying. Okay. But these and they're leading climatologists who've got tons of peer-reviewed papers on climate in numerous scientific journals. And these people are being silenced because they don't go with the narrative.
They're unapproved.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the people who are unapproved that are actually credible, but you're not supposed to hear from them. You're not supposed to talk to them. You're not even supposed to double check what was written. You keep hearing Kamala Harris and Tim Walz said, oh, the Wharton School said that Donald Trump his policy is going to lose money in 30 years. I actually read the synopsis of the actual study from the Wharton School of Business. In 30 years, yes, Trump's plan will lose money. And by the way, it will lose less money than Kamala's plan in 30 years. But that's not important because their policies aren't going to be in effect in 30 years. So who cares? What we're talking about, what's going to happen short term. Well, it's the short term that's important. And in the short term, less than 5 years, Trump's policy works. Kamala's works less efficiently than Trump's. Trump has a better policy for the time of his presidency, but they don't want you to see that. They expect, don't read the policy, just take us at our word. Don't read what's actually been printed and what's actually the proof, the result. Listen to the hype. It's sad.
Well, it is. Okay. And here they are. They're talking about misinformation, disinformation, and so forth, and they are the leading purveyors of it. Okay. with Trump and Charlottesville. With Trump right on X today, Walls says Trump hasn't paid taxes in the last 15 years, which there are numerous mainstream media sources that are proving that false.
Of course.
I mean, you go over it over and over, and pretty much everything that's coming out of their mouth is misinformation or disinformation. There might be a slight shred of truth, but generally that shred of truth is because something was taken out of context.
Well, and we know they take things out of context all the time so they can make a point.
Well, it's about the emotions. Literally, the only thing motivating and pushing forward, and I've said this before, no one expects, or at least Democrats initially did not expect Kamala Harris to win. That wasn't why she was put in place. She was put in place for two reasons. Well, three reasons, really. One, because she had access to the money that was donated to Joe Biden. So they needed the money. They weren't going to leave hundreds of millions of dollars without having access to it. So they needed her for that. She's a woman and she's black. They needed her for that because that limits the amount of critique that she can be put
That's
against
literally
her.
why Obama won.
Well, that's
when he was elected, because the two people that ran against him were afraid to bring up his positions on policies and stuff for fear of being called racist.
Well, yeah, and everyone's been hamstrung by that, and that continues with Kamala because you've got to worry about the color of her skin and the fact that she's a woman, which is ridiculous. I always knew that was going to be it. But the third thing is the reason why Harris is there is only, at the end of the day, is to try and protect the Democrats' position in Congress, in the House and in the Senate. They don't expect her to win. They just need her to motivate through emotions to give people enough feeling, whatever that feeling may be, hate orange man bad, protect women of color, whatever your reason is, your emotional trigger on the left, they're going to try and push that button so you show up and vote straight down the line and you hit the Democrat button on House and on the Senate so they can maintain power. They don't expect her to win. They never expected her to win. They don't care if she wins. They care.
And right now she is behind in the polls again.
They don't care about that. No one, because they never expected her to win in the first place.
They actually would prefer that she doesn't win.
I don't know about that.
No,
if they could win,
I do believe that they prefer if she doesn't win, because then that gives them the fodder to go after Trump even harder about how much he's a racist, how America's racist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't think that's correct. While I'm sure they're going to go after Trump hard no matter what. They're going to continue to demonize him for another 4 years if he's in power. Absolutely. But they were always going to do that. That doesn't matter. They're going to demonize MAGA and the right because they were going to do that anyway. That's not going to stop. They don't like Kamala. So that would be one reason why they don't want her in, because no Democrats like her. They have never liked her. Look at the results of her 2019 campaign. She was bankrupt and no one supported her. Why? Because they don't like her and they don't like her ideology. But they need her and they're using her and she's taking advantage of it. But I think if they could get a White House and the House of Representatives and the Senate and have a supermajority or just a simple majority, they will take that every day. And they know Kamala, she just wants the title. She wants the history making, saying I'm the woman in charge, but she isn't effective. She won't be doing anything. She doesn't do anything now. She's vice president. No one's heard from her in 3 out of the last 3.5 years. No one has heard her do anything. They stopped sending her places because she kept screwing up. It was better just to leave her as a fundraiser, and no one talked about her or even thought about her, because sending her somewhere would actually make the situation worse every single time. They'd put her in presidency and just say, just sit there in the Oval Office and shut up. Bask as being the, breaking the glass ceiling. Shut up, and they'll do exactly what they're doing with Biden right now. Somebody is running the country. It's not Kamala. It's not Joe Biden. I have no idea who the hell it is, but it definitely isn't either of them. And they'll do the exact same thing if Kamala's in charge. She'll be the face, and they'll say, "Oh, we broke the glass ceiling. Yay!" Shut up, Kamala. Sit there, nod your head. Don't do anything, because you'll only make it worse. That's what I think. So I think they would be fine with her winning. They just don't expect it. I mean, if they get it, it's a bonus. If they don't, it's okay, because they never expected it anyway. All they really want is the House and the Senate. That's all they really care about at this point. I don't know. Do you guys disagree with me?
I just think you don't know who's running the show? We know who's running the show. The guy
I
who said,
honestly do believe
if I could just figure out how to
because
sit here in the
that gives
basement.
them a chance to regroup over the next 4 years and come back hard in 2028. And right now, they are a party that's in disarray because they put all their eggs in Biden's basket. Okay. And then when they couldn't hide the fact that Biden was a puppet and that somebody else was in control because of his senility, they had to figure out a new plan. And they tried going with Harris. And honestly, Harris was the worst choice that they could make.
No, but their party's always been a mess. There's always the far left wing. We're talking about the Democratic Socialists of America, the Antifa, the BLM, that make up the Democratic Party. They're factions, which, while they may be small, 3 to 7% of the entire Democratic Party, they're incredibly loud. They're incredibly violent. They're incredibly insane. There's always been a factional fight within the Democratic Party. They're always a mess. The only thing they get right is that they motivate the base, the majority of the rank and file Democrats to vote D no matter who. So whether you're getting an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or a Kirsten Gillibrand, they're going to vote no matter what, because that's the Democrat in charge. Even though radically different points of view, radically different people, they're still going to vote Democrat because it's a D. Even though, a progressive is nothing like a yes woman, they're not the same. So that confusion has always been there, but they can all say, and every faction of Democrat is more than happy to go, here's the race card. Here's the gender card, intersectionality. We got gays. Gays are in now too, and trans are in now too. Yeah. Just throw them in. We'll use those cards too, as long as they get the emotion we need to maintain power. They don't give a damn about any of them. I mean, seriously, don't give a damn about any of it. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sick.
Okay, I think we hammered that subject.
Okay.
I'm not doing the debate yet. Haha. I know that I had put something.
Yeah, you keep pushing that off.
I'm pushing it off because I think we should end with it. That's why. That's going to be the bulk of the last hour. So, I know that I had put something on there that you guys said that you had talked about last week, which I had missed last week. So Dal had reached out and said maybe Israel sound whacking of Hezbollah, their optics of no-nonsense tolerance, basically has Iran anxious and the rest of the world kind of shocked. And then Michael came back and said, well, we should also talk about Israel with Iran and Lebanon. So I'm not sure if you guys knew where Dahl was going with that.
I think Dahl was trying to say that Israel, their actions have been trying to convince the puppets of Iran, so that would be the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas, to back down, to stand down, that Israel is prepared and is capable of striking them and striking them significantly and disabling them, their communications, their leadership, their ability to continue to fight. And that hopefully was going to cause them to calm down.
Yeah.
But the source of all of this isn't any of those puppets. It's all coming from Iran itself. And Iran doesn't care if its puppets have communications or not. It doesn't care if they're effective or not. They
It
just
doesn't
want
care if their
Israel dead.
puppets die.
Well, of course not.
They're sacrificial lambs.
They could care less. They just want Israel to die. And that's why we saw now that Iran had to retaliate, to attack because of Hezbollah. And that's the reasoning they're using. But what it really is Iran is saying, hey, we have the back of our puppets. We know that Israel can take you out and is effectively taking you guys out, but we're still here. We'll still be here to attack. We're still going to back you up. And that's why they fired 180 ballistic missiles at Israel. It wasn't that they thought they were going to get through the Iron Dome. They knew anything except a hypersonic missile won't make it through unless you had thousands of them all at once. So a couple hundred aren't going to get through. They knew that. The point was to say that was a signal to Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. We've got your back. We're in this too, and we're not afraid.
And the timing's also kind of interesting because there's also time to correspond when Israel put boots on the ground in Lebanon.
I don't necessarily agree with Israel putting boots in Lebanon. I understand why they did it. I don't think it's the best thing they could have done. I understand why, but I think that's working against them. The bombings were fine. Bombings obviously have collateral damage. It happens. We get that. But there's a difference between they're firing missiles, we're firing missiles, exchange of missiles, and being effective at that, more effective than your enemy, than having troops actually cross the border, actually in a foreign country. Now you've escalated in a very different way, because you haven't just, Hezbollah isn't the government. It isn't the government of Lebanon. It's a faction. It is a terrorist organization in Lebanon. Yes, it has many of the powers of government. It isn't the government. The second you step into Lebanon, you've now gone against a government. It is the government of Israel versus the government of Lebanon, regardless of, well, the faction in Lebanon is Hezbollah. Yeah, that doesn't matter. You just broke international lines. You just took on another government. That's a very different thing than bombing and trying to target a terrorist organization in this area. I don't know if that's clear for everybody, but I think that Israel went too far when it did that. The bombings, yes. Crossing that border with troops, no, that's too much. And the reason why Gaza isn't that, because Gaza is owned by Israel. It's their own territory. Palestinians may live there, but it's Israel's land. So they're not invading. That's theirs. Lebanon, entirely different. Does that make sense? Not that
Now, the
everyone
reason
would.
why, and honestly, I think they put their military at extreme risk trying to do a targeted ground offensive because obviously Lebanon is going to defend themselves. And Israel was going in there just basically to push Hezbollah back, is what they're saying. And that puts Israel's military at a lot higher risk by not going at that as a full war, but
That's my
instead
problem.
trying to go as a targeted war, which they would never have gotten any support from Lebanon anyway, because we all know that, because Lebanon doesn't support Israel in any way, shape, or form. They don't believe Israel should exist.
Yeah, but Israel did commit an act of war. It is an act of war. Their troops crossed the border of a sovereign nation. Regardless that they're going after a organization, even though it's a terrorist organization, they're going after an organization in a country with military crossing the
But
border. That's what an act of
Also,
war.
like, I mean, I fully believe Israel has the full authority to defend themselves. And if that means crossing the border of a country that is supporting those terrorists that are harming them, then they should.
I
We
understand.
did it.
Well, what? We did what? We dropped troops where?
Afghanistan,
Right.
Iraq.
And what and in each of those cases, I also said that's an act of war. It needs to be cleared by Congress. And I didn't agree with doing either of those in the same for many of the same reasons that I don't agree with Israel doing this. And I will say that I'll say to Israel the same thing I said about the United States in Iraq and in Afghanistan. If we drop one boot on the ground, take it over. Don't fight an organization. Don't fight for a territory or
No,
to
I
disable.
totally
Take it
agree
over. Take the whole
there.
damn thing over.
Okay, because I mean, and honestly, they would have legitimacy, in my opinion, to go after Lebanon for giving aid and comfort to Hezbollah.
Kind of yes, kind of no. But if you're going to do it, since it is an act of war, then have the war. Take the country over. Don't half-ass this because it only makes things worse. Take the country over so that then you can change the culture of that country. Bring in more technology, bring in a stable economy, bring in education, freedom for women to be able to go to schools, to learn to read, the right to drive cars. Show people what happens when you have, and I know people say, well, then they're going to be second-class Israeli citizens. That's still a step up from being Lebanese citizens. The fact is, that would be lifting the people up from the current quality of life that they have. Do that, change the culture, change the environment, and you will see in a generation or two, things will be very, very different. Do it. Don't half-ass it. Don't do piecemeal. This is the worst way to do this. Go in, take it over. If you're not, then keep bombing. Otherwise, go in, take it all. Same thing I said about America in Afghanistan and in Iraq. I have the same belief for Israel. Don't half-ass this. Go and take it. We should have in Afghanistan. We should have taken over the entire damn country. Don't half-ass it. Take it over.
Yeah.
It'd be a commonwealth right now. Same thing with Iraq. They should be commonwealths of the United States right now. We should have paved over. We should have paved in brand new roads and hospitals and schools and electricity and plumbing, and they'd be using the US dollar, and they'd be Commonwealth citizens, just like the Samoan Islands. And in a generation, they can decide whatever the hell they want to at that point. But until then, we own it. That's what we should have done, and we'd have a better result. So I say the same. So for me, it's a matter of being consistent. I say the same thing to Israel that I say to the United States.
I do agree that if they're going to go in there, they need to go in there full bore, not piecemeal. Okay, because going in piecemeal doesn't get your mission accomplished. Number one, Hezbollah is still going to be there because they'll go underground because you're not putting the resources together to actually root them out. Number two, you're putting your military at a lot higher risk. And that's not what you should be doing. Okay. If you're going to do it, you need to make sure that it's a war that you can win and win handily, or don't do it. that was a mistake that we made in Afghanistan. That was a mistake we made with Iraq.
Yeah, it's a very unique situation.
That's a mistake that we also made in Bosnia. We went in there half-assed.
Hang on, I'm just responding to one of the people there.
What are you
And I
doing
think-
over there, Frank? You got lights going?
What's that?
I
Oh,
said, what you got going on over there with all your different colored lights going and taking pictures?
well, as of tomorrow, I'm going to have a house full of people.
I'm one of them.
Shut up. You're trying to work into a segue here and you ruin it. God
So
damn it. Sometimes you just get no freaking cooperation. So tomorrow, I'm going to have a house full of people here for only a few hours because some of those people are going to be getting in a vehicle and are going to be traveling to the state of Georgia and are going to be attending a full weekend of blowing shit up. Yeah, it's going to be a full fun
Bang,
weekend.
bang, 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 bang.
Lots of shooting, full auto, full craziness. We're going to get nuts. And what I've been sitting here doing is everybody's been talking. And yes, I have been paying attention because I interject periodically, is I've been getting all the camera gear ready because we're going to be bringing multiple cameras, a drone, a couple of other things. And we are going to be covering this event for the whole weekend. And myself and Michael Marshall will finally be on camera together shooting stuff and having a blast.
Yep.
So
We've only been on camera together one other time.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
SHOT Show, what, 4 years ago now?
Yeah. And plus we were on camera in Ohio, but we were doing the podcast from there.
Yep.
You know, but wasn't necessarily an event like this. But this, we're going to be doing a whole lot of content creation. We'll be going up the IV 8888, one of the bigger YouTube channels, invited us to go to their annual range weekend. We got invited several years ago, but due to COVID and natural disasters and everything else, we never had the opportunity.
We got invited.
Yeah, we never had the opportunity to get together and actually go, but this year we managed to do a whole bunch of finagling with schedules and the rest of that. And Michael's flying down to North Carolina tomorrow, and we're going to be loading up the truck, and we're going to be heading down to Georgia, and we're going to be having a fantastic weekend with a bunch of very famous content creators and Second Amendment advocates and some Congress people that we know that have been invited down there that we can finally give them a little bit of a piece of our mind when we see them in person. Not too much because we still need some of it for the show, but we're going to be having a great time this coming weekend, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And you know, Lori and I have both. Yeah, this is pretty much what we'll be doing.
This is at one of his range days.
cool. Oh, the big boy.
Yeah, so we're going to be there. Now we're going in. Range day is actually Saturday and Sunday, but you know, for those of us who can make the trip a little earlier and actually help out with getting things set up, you know, and stuff like that, there's a nice big meet and greet dinner on Friday night in this extremely undisclosed location. We are sworn to secrecy as to where this is going to be. We can tell you what state. That's about it. But we're going to be doing that. And the funny thing is, I don't have to pack any of my own guns. That's what's so cool about it. I can leave all this stuff home.
I mean,
So-
you don't got to clean it. That's good.
Yeah, well, I even have cleaning down to a science now. I have ultrasonic cleaners So what I do is I set up this hot bath of chemicals and water, and I turn the machine on. I take the gun apart, I drop it into the thing, and 20 minutes later I come back and they're all nice and clean, and I just put them back together. Make life a lot easier for myself.
Okay, so Lucky's claiming that we support Israel's war crimes. Lucky,
All right, well-
explain exactly what war crimes Israel is actually guilty of committing.
I don't know what Good Lucky is trying to say there because Good Lucky doesn't speak English. Good Lucky also doesn't have a good translator. Good Lucky needs to get a translator. So the comment, which I just responded to, is to tell Good Lucky, I personally, Michael Voss, support Israel. Whether or not I critique parts of their actions, I support Israel. I do not support Hamas. I do not support Hezbollah. I do not support the Houthis. I do not support Iran. I denounce each of those insane fanatical countries, those fanatical organizations and the country of Iran, their leadership. I would like to see each of those terrorist organizations eliminated from the face of the earth. Let me be clear about that. No matter what you may think about Israel, they are not on the level of Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis because they are not trying to genocide anyone. If they were, they wouldn't be there anymore. They aren't. Let's be very clear about
Actually, Israel's just tried to live in peace, and those organizations that you just named, Michael, are constantly stirring them up.
They are, well, because Hamas.
They just want to be left alone.
Yeah, because Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iran all have declared in writing and in their words for decades that they want to genocide a group of people because of their religious belief, something that in America we oppose. American people don't believe in genociding someone because of their religious belief. So we do not support, or at least I do not support that. The American documentation, our constitution, does not support that. And I understand you may be Pakistani. Fantastic. And you have enough issues in Pakistan with India and with China to have a very different point of view. And I'm surprised that you would support Iran and their terrorism if you're a Pakistani. But that's a whole different set of politics in the Asian continent. Yeah, I do follow international politics.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. Sorry, guys. That's just, I get annoyed when I see these, and maybe it's because of the translation, but it's just.
Well, it's not only the translation. There's cultural differences between us and the people around the world. There's also informational differences between us and the people around the world. Everybody gets spoon-fed whatever information they get their hands on. And that's usually with a lot of these foreign nations what we see as far as nations is state-controlled media. And a lot of these countries like Pakistan and like Syria and the rest of this, the state-controlled media is also
true
indoctrinational control based on a religious ideology.
Mm-hmm.
So the citizens of these countries already have a certain religious beliefs, and then they're getting information pumped into them that just reinforces what they're being taught, what they're being told. They're only getting one perspective of it. And when you
very limited perspective,
very limited. Mm-hmm. And when you look at if you actually went to Israel and spoke to Israel, if you looked at the Israeli army, do you have any idea how many Arabs, people of Arabic descent, how many Muslims fight in the Israeli army? Because Israel is their home. And they're getting bombarded with rockets because the rockets that are being sent over the border from Iran and everywhere else are indiscriminate. They don't care about the targets they hit. They don't care about the people they hit. They blindly send explosives through the sky in the hopes that they wreak enough fear and terror into the people that Israel somehow goes away. It's not going to happen.
And
It's not.
then also, Lucky, don't you think Israel has an obligation to its citizens to protect them and to actually go after the people that perpetrated the horrendous events on October 7th?
Well, they never like to go back to the actual instigating point. Where did this all come from? Oh, it came from Hamas under the control of Iran going into suddenly out of the blue, October 7th, 2023, walked into Israel and just massacred 1,200, 1,400 people, including 32 Americans, killed them, and capturing 22 Americans that they have been torturing and sexually abusing, and we believe have killed each and every one of them, including 17
what about
British
those war
citizens.
crimes? Good Lucky. What about those acts of terrorism?
Oh, he found a good translator suddenly, or someone else is speaking for Good Lucky now. You notice how the English suddenly changed?
Yeah. And he's going to start talking about all the different peace deals that have been offered. Yes. And how many of them have been rejected by the Palestinians?
Every
and how
one of them.
many of them that once agreed upon were immediately violated by terrorist organizations from the Palestinian side?
Almost always all of them.
You,
But
you can't, listen, you can't shake hands with somebody who's got a knife in the other hand and expect that you're not going to get stabbed. That's what's
Pretty
been
much-
happening for a generation over there.
Pretty much every agreement that Israel's done with Palestine
by the
has
way,
been violated by Palestine.
by the way, folks, I want you to just, we can move on in a moment, but I just want you to understand this is disingenuous. Look at what's going on here. So let me show you. This is one of the initial statements from Good Lucky, which we showed you before. This is a follow-up statement from Good Lucky. You can see that on the screen. This is someone who obviously English is not their first language. That's fine. This is now the latest response. Something changed, which either means Good Lucky is a drone and they handed it over to someone who actually does speak English and they're speaking for Good Lucky, or they found a better translator. I don't know which one it is, but one or the other. And considering the nature of how they're interrupting our show, I would believe, I'm more likely to believe that Good Lucky is a drone and they handed the account over to someone who actually does speak English to push the pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism point of view. That's what I believe. But I want to let people see what we're seeing so you can understand when we say, yeah, something seems fishy in the way they just suddenly changed every aspect of what they're telling to us. They're trying to set it up. They're trying to push pro-Hamas, pro-Israel, Iran, pro-terrorism rhetoric on our channel.
And
that's what
anti-Israel,
pisses me off.
anti-American.
Yeah, and that pisses me off.
All right. All right. So we got about 40 minutes left since we started late. And it is now time to turn to the vice presidential debate. I'm going to start off by saying I think Vance did a very good job last night. I was very proud of him when he called out the moderator for fact checking him or trying to fact check him when the moderator started off the show saying there would be no fact checking. What I didn't appreciate was there were times that they didn't let Vance get his 1 minute rebuttal in. And there were numerous times that they would look at White's, Tim, because I have a hard time with his last name. They'd look at Tim and go, well, would you like to respond specifically to da-da-da-da-da? And not once did they do that for Vance.
Well, the playing field is going to be lopsided. You know that it was it was 3-1 going into this thing, and
Mhm.
Vance comported himself very, very, very well, and
He didn't allow himself to get rattled.
right, and him throwing those shots across the bow so early on in the debate threw the moderators off their game, because they instantly realized this guy is not somebody that we're going to be able to push around so easily, which was great. However, as good as Vance did, and Waltz did very well too
I
last
don't
night.
think so.
No, he didn't, with the exception of being friends with school shooters.
Yeah, that was a big one.
He did not come across the way a lot of the right-wing media outlets have been describing him, as this completely unhinged weirdo.
No.
He came across as an average guy last night.
I don't think so.
No, he
He
did.
was obviously we know he was very flustered. He was very nervous.
he
He was
turned-
having a panic attack, and I was half expecting him to have a heart attack
Well,
on
he
the
turned
stage.
he turned apple red within the first 3 minutes of the debate. But for what we expected of him versus the performance he turned in, he did very well.
No,
He did a
he
lot
did
better.
exactly how I expected him to do.
I thought he would be able to be stumbled a little bit more easily. I thought that Vance would catch him a little bit more easily. But on the same token, Vance dropped so many opportunities to drive nails where he should have been able to. For instance, like if he would have, like Lori was yelling at me last night when we were sitting on the couch, she goes, "I wish you would have won debating him," because I was screaming answers at the TV last night watching it. When he says, we want people to mind your damn business. I was like, well, aren't you the governor that set up a 1-800 number so you residents could snitch on each other during COVID?
Yes.
Weren't you the same governor that sent state police out with pepper ball rifles so that when people dared step outside their house during COVID, you shot them? Weren't you the same people that, put all these restrictions on people? He didn't hit him on the BLM riots. There was a lot that he could have hit him on that would have driven the point home to show, okay, while he might be standing next to me looking like everybody's goofy uncle at the barbecue, he's actually just as radical as his running mate is. Vance could have done, but I think Vance overall came across assertive, friendly, yet diplomatic. But he also came across as knowledgeable. The only thing I didn't like that he really did was kept getting into the whole substance abuse with his mother. That I'm like, all right, listen, I heard that already. Go, let it go. Stop wearing. Look, that's not something he's got. That's not a medal that he's got to be wearing at every conference.
Okay, but I had slightly different take, because yes, I do agree that Vance did come off as being very knowledgeable, but yet not in an overbearing, elitist, I'm an academic kind of way. And we've heard that from many politicians who are academics or think they're academics, and they try to lord over, I have all this knowledge, you don't have any, you must listen to me. He's not that kind of guy, but he is knowledgeable and detailed, and he brought it across very, he embarrassed the moderators by saying, no, you've just misinformed the American people. Let me provide the actual information. And they cut the mics off. Mind you, they cut the mic off of both, not only Vance, but also Walls, when they were trying to obviously inform the public on something that's actually important and a critical, one of the top 5 issues affecting the 2024 election. And CBS said, this isn't going well for us. Vance is looking way too good on this. And the moderators are being embarrassed because they were wrong. So they cut the mics. And that to me was really telling about where CBS stood and how they wanted to fortify the 2024 election in favor of the Democrats. But I think Vance was smart enough, and his goal was to be approachable. He was the guy who is the moderate of the team. And that's why I think he didn't attack as hard as he could have. I mean, there were several times he was giving knowing looks to the camera several times that he was ready. He caught the various things that Walls was saying, but he already won. He had already beaten, tore apart. At the end of the first question, he had destroyed Walls already. He didn't need to compound it by just slamming him into the dirt, which would have made him seem mean, picking on someone who is weak and incapable. Rather, he just kept him at bay and pushed both the agenda and answered the questions, so people knew he knows what he's talking about. He has a plan. And by the way, he's also a team player. So I think he did all that great. As for Walls, he was as feeble as I expected him to be. He is a believer. He is a progressive believer, which is one of the worst things you could possibly have, because he wholeheartedly thinks he's right, even when he can't articulate why he's right, when he has no evidence, no proof of being right. His only answer is, well, we have the right ideology. It's going to work eventually. Sooner or later, if we give enough money and enough time, it will work. And he has nothing to point to. He was trying to make this illusion or illusion that Donald Trump, during the Trump administration, somehow everyone was in poverty and were suffering economically. It was such a terrible time. And now, thanks to the Biden, Harris, and more importantly, the Harris projections of policies, of economic policy, we're going to be so much better off. And it's like, have you gone to the store recently? Are you listening to any of your constituents? You're not in reality here. Break the echo bubble and look at what's happening, because no one agrees with that statement. Everyone knows we were better off under the Trump administration than we are right now economically. Whether you like Trump or not, it is an irrefutable fact. And he had a lot of facts like that he's trying to move people emotionally, because he didn't have anything substantive that he could possibly say. And he was having a panic attack at the same time, which makes him look weak. I said something during my coverage of the debate while it was live, and I had to ask everyone a very simple question. And I think everyone should ask this question in America. If we have to send someone to talk to North Korea, or we have to send them into Europe to talk to Putin, if we need someone to speak for the United States that isn't the president, for whatever reason, as we have seen Kamala Harris has had to do and failed at. But if we had to send Walls or Vance, who do you want representing the United States? Who do you think that Kim Jong-un in North Korea, that the Ayatollah in Iran, that Putin, or any other world leader, who do you think they're going to respect more? A guy who's having a panic attack and is bumbling over his words and is making up facts. He's misquoting the facts and the truth and trying to lie to your face, or somebody who's standing there calm and cool and collected, who knows the issue, knows the facts, and knows what the position is he's trying to stand for, and is willing to actually stand there and look you in the face and say it. Which one do you want as vice president? Which one do you want protecting America overseas, internationally? Because I can tell you, I don't want Walls, because that believer, they're going to steamroll him, because they don't believe what he believes, because they don't care what he believes. Their belief, his belief, the Walls' belief in progressivism is meaningless to the rest of the world. It only means something in Minnesota and the Democratic Party. And that's the problem with Walls. That's the problem with the entire Harris-Walls campaign. And I think that came out very clearly in the debate. And because it came out clearly, Vance didn't need to shove it down people's throats. And that's why he was really, really effective, in my opinion.
Here's one of the things I find funny. So I went through a couple quote unquote fact checks. And of course, it was just like with the Trump debate. They pointed out all kinds of stuff. Supposedly that's not true that Vance said. They didn't hardly touch on anything that Walls said.
Mhm.
Okay, I just find that very telling too about the mainstream media.
Well, the only
Ooh.
thing that they questioned him on was the Tiananmen Square bullshit. You said you were there, but you were somewhere else. And
Yeah.
instead of, and he just said, "Well, I'm a knucklehead." Well, press him on it.
Because he
Press-
didn't answer the question. He never answered that question.
No, he didn't. He didn't answer that question
No.
at all.
And that's something that both him and Harris are very good at, is circling around the question, making
it's
it
not-
sound like they're saying something, but
I don't
they're
think they're
not.
good at it.
Well, it's not that they're good at circling
No.
around the question. The media is good at letting them get away with it.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah,
They don't
rephrase.
call them out on.
Because she can say, "Well, what are you doing to lower prices?" And she goes into a 10-minute diatribe about how she was raised middle class and her mother bought the house and people were concerned about the lawns and it's something they take very seriously. Well, where's your friggin' answer? That's not an answer.
Yeah. He told us all about Walls last night, told us about, well, I was there for education and I think it's really important to have education. I want to talk about schooling and, I was all around that. Yeah, but you didn't answer. Why is there a discrepancy? What is the answer of when were you there? He didn't answer that at all. And they never went back to it. They never answered. He just kept talking about everything else. And matter of fact, they did follow it up. And they did say, yes, but the question was the discrepancy. And then he went, well, I just screwed up. Okay, I still don't know what the answer is. None of that answered the question for me, which makes me not surprised that there is a House Oversight Committee investigation. And the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, has a memo of their employees saying that he has a troubling connection to the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP.
Mm-hmm.
Well, considering the guy's been there 30 times, he decided to have a honeymoon in China. Who the hell goes to China for a honeymoon? Let's be serious. It's not at the top of the romance checklist for people around the world. And we have seen there is a severe predilection or prevalence of Chinese spies in Democratic parties, organizations, and elected officials in the Democratic Party. I think he's got a problem. And I don't think he wants us to know the dates because that could highlight he has a problem. That's just my speculation there.
Well, they also didn't press him on his constant misrepresentation of his military record. They didn't press him on why he did nothing to stop the riots, why he did actually promote the riots. I mean, there's a million things that we can go on about the media not doing their job. The bottom line is the American people have to do the job of the media, and the American people are the ones that have to actually hold these people accountable by doing the research themselves and looking into the record and asking questions.
Right.
If you rely on the media to do it, it's not going to happen.
No, you can't wait for the media to do it by itself. And obviously, they're trying to fortify the 2024 election like they fortified the 2020 election. And we are seeing it before our eyes in the way that there is such a biased treatment going on right in front of us. And we can see it in these non-answers that are allowed to stand with no real objection. I thought this was the embarrassment. I didn't expect this debate to change people's vote, their positions. And I didn't think it would motivate independents to pick one or the other. In retrospect, I think maybe it moved more independents towards Trump than previously.
Well, you said it right before. You said it before very, very well when you mentioned somebody's back, Mike, that he offered a balance.
Yeah.
And he said, listen, a lot of people don't like Donald Trump, and he says a lot of things that people don't agree with. And I don't agree with a lot of what he says and everything. But we can work together to find a common resolution and have common sense prevail.
Yeah.
He offered a balance to pretty much say, listen, I'm a counterweight to Donald Trump. Where he's right, we're going to move forward. Where there's issues, we'll resolve them. But we're still going to move forward. Whereas Waltz is pretty much going to be a rubber stamp for anything that that Obama and the rest of the people who control the Democrat Party want them to continue pushing the fundamental transformation of the United States of America.
I think Walz would try and push us even further left than they have. Again, he's a believer. He's going to push us as far. He's the guy who supports Antifa. He's the guy who supports autonomous zones in Minneapolis that did $2 billion worth of damage that's destroyed generations of people, in particular Black people as well as others, but very much so Black people in Minneapolis, destroyed their lives for generations. He supported and autonomous zones are insurrectionists. They violate every local, state, and federal law in the country, and he supports that. He allowed that. Unlike even in the Chaz, the Seattle, the Capitol Hill autonomous zone, even that was shut down by the left because it was such a violation and such a danger. And Walz kept it for a year and a half. So yeah, he's going to push. If they were to get elected, he's going to push as far left as he can, constantly trying to make us more progressive, more socialist, because he truly believes that no matter what the interim cost is to you, me, the nation, and the world, he's going to push it anyway. And that's believers are dangerous. Believers are, you don't have to agree. I always say this, you don't have to agree with me. But it's not because I believe without question. Don't believe without question. That's dangerous. That truly, unless it's your religious belief, fantastic. Faith is faith. But no government should be believed as if it were a faith. That's just dangerous, in my opinion.
Well, it
I
is.
can't speak for everyone else.
And honestly, you should never trust government. Ever.
Yeah.
Okay. That is what we are here for, is to hold our government accountable. That is why we have a government of we the people. It is our job, our duty, our responsibility, our obligation to hold our government accountable, not accept them on blind faith. And I don't care what party's in power. I don't care who it is as president. I don't care who's sitting in Congress. We should be questioning absolutely everything they say and do.
Yeah, but this debate, it's sad too that we only have one debate with Kamala Harris. We only have one debate with Tim Walz. There's so much.
And honestly, we didn't learn anything from either debate.
No, nor their website.
Well, and after the debate last night, Kamala, knowing that Waltz didn't do a good job, challenged Trump to another debate. And Trump came out and said, we're too close to the election. What's another debate going to do?
Well, I understand. I can see it being both. I can see both sides of why he would do it, and politically, separating everything else. Politically, the smartest thing for Trump is don't do it, because he's already got the win. Everyone forgot the first debate because it was forgettable. Because Kamala said nothing really stunning. All she did was she raised the bar from Joe Biden to sentient being. That's all she did. And she got a lot of love temporarily for that. But she really didn't do well in that debate.
People are starting to catch on that she has no plans.
Exactly. She doesn't have a plan, and that's come out. Now you see Walz. He also hasn't, there's no plan for him to support. It's just about feelings, and that's been exposed. So politically, there's no reason for Trump to do another debate.
Okay.
But I
mean,
think
they're
they
very
should.
good. They're very good with catchphrases like opportunity economy.
That means nothing.
It doesn't.
They have yet to define what the hell an opportunity economy is. It means
Okay.
nothing.
Right. Nothing that they say means anything. They're good catchphrases.
Well, it's emotions. They're trying to motivate emotions, not logic, not
Well, it's like
consideration.
it's like when they were talking about housing last night, and well, Kamala's going to give this amount of money to people to put a down payment on housing, and I was like, okay, I was waiting for Vance to bring up the fact. Well, wait a minute, doesn't it say in the fine print down there that if anybody in your immediate family has owned a home, you don't qualify?
Well, that's one of the things about it. It also impoverishes the public. A lot of the homes, they said 3 million homes. Those are called projects. We see them in Chicago, New York, LA. It's also called a ghetto. When government makes housing, they make ghettos. Nobody wants to live there unless you want to be ghetto fabulous, and no one wants to really be ghetto fabulous. So that's one problem. Two, $25,000 just increases your local property taxes. It raises your local and state taxes. And three, it doesn't actually lower your payment. That would require lowering the interest rates, which would require a better economy.
No, actually, that $25,000 down payment will actually increase their payments.
Well,
because not only will they have their mortgage payments, they will have to repay that $25,000 because it is not a grant.
No, it's a credit.
Right. Well, it is a subsidy. I mean, it's a loan.
Yeah.
Okay. It is a loan from the federal government
But they want you to
that has to be paid back.
But it's the typical thing. We're doing something.
Well, the infamous
so
government doing
not
something.
only will they have their house payment that they have to make every month, their tax payments that they have to make, or for property taxes, they also will have to make this payment back to the federal government. Okay. One of the reasons why Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac collapsed was because they were giving no down payment loans to people that couldn't afford to make the house payments to begin with.
Well, now you're talking about the 1986 change to lending practices, small business loans, and SBA loans, which were created the subprime market. It was all because of Congress. It was all because of Democrats in Congress that created the housing bubble. Took 30 years to burst because 30-year mortgage.
Right.
And they're looking to do it again.
And Dodd-Frank expedited the whole process.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
Bonnie Frank's still alive.
Huh?
Bonnie Frank's still alive?
I thought he was, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh.
He's just been out of politics.
They're literally creating the same environment with this, only worse, that was created that caused the housing collapse in 2007.
Yeah.
Which led to all these big organizations, big corporations buying up all these houses that were lost during the subprime cabafo.
And it's going to happen again.
It will.
That's what we're not hearing. See, all of what we're talking about, the follow-up that we're seeing coming from, you, me. Hey, you know what? It doesn't matter if it's on the right, on the left. You got Harlan's Media, my buddy Cabello over there. You've got from the libertarian side. You've got my friend Larry Sharp. There are commentators throughout every political side are saying almost the same thing. They're doing the job that the mainstream should be doing, because John Kerry said the mainstream doesn't, they're the approved message and they're trying to silence these conversations. They don't want you to have this conversation. And that's why they're trying to destroy the First Amendment. And you have to take this all into context. John Kerry is, we know that they're trying to have illegal aliens come into the country. They've told us that. They told us why. To have voters that are beholden to the Democrats. They've told us they're trying to destroy this First Amendment because they want to control what you hear about the news and how you talk about the news so that you can't vote people out based on the accurate news. They're allowing feelings to dominate in these debates rather than substance because they think that's going to give the edge to Democrats and maintain their power base. This is insidious what we are seeing happening in our nation right now. And no, this isn't the most important election ever, but it is important in the direction of where this country is going and the trend of what's happening. And we need to pay attention to this.
We do. Okay, because here's the other thing is this isn't only going to happen in housing. Her other program that is supposed to help new businesses is going to be the same thing.
Well, it's more spending, which means it automatically can't help.
Yeah, but it's going to create a bubble that is going to collapse and burst.
Yeah, that's one of the outcomes of it. Besides the fact that it's also going to, because the spending means poor people get more poor because we have to print more money. It also means that every one of those businesses has $50,000 they have to pay back. And when some of those businesses fail because they never made money, that's losses that the United States will have to absorb with no collateral, nothing to show for it. Kind of like when we made the investment in GM under the Obama administration and we lost money, like when we made the investments in green energy and we lost that money. That's what they're setting us up to do again, just with small businesses all across the country. This is a horrible idea.
Okay. And honestly, if you guys want your dollars to keep decreasing, because since 2020, the value of the dollar has decreased 18%. If you want that to continue, vote for Kamala Harris. Because it's going to decrease a lot more than 18% over the next 4 years if she's in office.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what you need to look at. Okay. It would take an 18% raise, actually more than an 18% raise of your income in order to keep up with the loss in value of the US dollar.
Well, inflation itself at its peak was up over 27% inflation since 2021 to the peak, which was in August of 2022. We're currently at an inflation versus 2021, January of 2021, we're up approximately 18%, 17 to 18%, depending on who you're counting. So even if you were to get over 18%, you'd still be below the peak. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous how, again, the numbers aren't being reported well to the public because if you knew, then they wouldn't fortify the election. You might not vote the way they want you to vote. And that's why they don't want people like us sharing the actual Constitution, sharing the actual laws and legislation, and discussing the actual consequences. They don't want that conversation. That's why
they don't want us to point out the limitations to their power.
Yeah.
Because they want to wield power indiscriminately without limit.
Yeah.
And that is literally what Kamala Harris is pushing for. That is literally what she has said multiple times, not only as a vice president, but as district attorney as the state attorney general and as a candidate for president, not just in this election, but in the previous election.
Yeah. So I think the overall, the debate, I think you see, as a result of the debate, I think you see about a 1, maybe 2%, probably 1, but possibly 1 to 2% boost for Trump in the polling going forward, because I can't see even the far left, CNN, MSNBC, they can't justify what Tim Walz did. They lost. It's unavoidable. So I think you see that boost, but that's not long term. That's not enough to shift the election. I think that's just temporary. But I think you see a 1, maybe 2% increase for
I
Trump.
see Trump might gain some ground, but what I see more is Kamala will start losing ground,
Sure, it has been.
and she will lose ground because she has no plans. Okay. And whenever she is asked about what she will do for the economy, what she'll do for this, what she'll do for that, what she'll do to bring down prices, she has zero answers.
Yeah.
Okay. And people are going to start waking up to that.
More than enough before the election. And right now, and I've heard rumors of internal Democrat polling saying that Trump is winning Michigan, which makes sense because of the Dearborn, Michigan non-committed voters who are upset about Kamala Harris not being pro-Hamas. So, and they're voting for Jill Stein predominantly. So I could see, we're looking at Trump winning probably 5, maybe 6 of the battleground states, probably by about 2 to 3 percentage points. That winds up being about 4 percentage points nationally. That's a sweep. That puts him at about 300 electoral votes. 302.
Well, RCP right now, in their no toss-up, shows Trump at 281.
Yeah, I think they're wrong. I think it's 302. My math, my electoral math comes out to about 302.
Okay, and if he gets Michigan, that would put it at 296. I also think he'll take Nevada. That would put him at 302.
That's my math.
I got him at 312.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the big one that I'm missing?
I was taking California.
Oh God.
Yeah, he's going to take California, New York, New Jersey. Yeah, I think my electoral might be like 387. I think that's where I'm at.
Pretty much. If you're getting California, yeah.
Hey, I just want 270. I'll be happy with 270. I know it'll be more than that, or at least I'm praying it'll be more than that, because I've been tracking stuff every day myself, and I'm still thinking 300 at least. But
It's a trend. I would always advise people, you can't look at any one poll on any one day from any one organization, because it could say anything. It'll tell you the sky is purple and, I don't know, King Kong is currently, vacationing in France. You can't go by that. What you have to look at is the trend. That's what I look at. I look at which I think is why Real Clear Politics is important. Look at all the major polls over time, over a long term. And over the long term, Trump has actually been increasing. About 6 months ago in April, he was at about 42-ish%. Now he's at about 46. He's been growing and gaining even as he's getting more
Actually,
and more.
RCP has him at 48.4.
That's not the one I'm using. You're looking at Trump versus Kamala head to head. I'm looking at the five-way. The five-way race, which includes Dr. Cornel West, Joe Stein, still has, or it had Chase Oliver and RFK is still on there because he's still on 31 ballots across the country. So he could pull 3%. So that's the one I'm actually looking at. And consistently you've seen, and I look at that chart because one, it's all 5 of the major candidates, long term with all the different polling. And that tells me that trend leans towards 302 for Trump.
All right, guys, it's almost 9:30.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Okay. You want to close this out, Frank?
Yeah. Now a word from our sponsor. Actually, no, not a word from our sponsor. We don't have a sponsor. However, I am going to give a shout out to this company. This is Mills Ammunition. It's ammunition manufactured right here in North Carolina. I picked up a few boxes of it. This is unsolicited. I picked up a few boxes of these at a gun show over the summertime, and I've been using them with some regularity, and they're now being carried by my local FFL where I actually go and shoot. I got a chronograph, I got a decibel meter, and I got the swabs I clean my guns with. This stuff shoots faster than my regular ammunition, whether it's blazer brass or anything else like that. It shoots cleaner and it shoots quieter. I don't know how the hell this company did it, but it's really some cool, really good ammunition. I got in touch with them, and I'm gonna actually hook up with these people and bring them on the YouTube channel. The bullets they make are a powder coated. Where the hell is the damn focus? They're powder coated. I don't know if you can see the color on this thing.
Red.
Yeah, it's kind of a red.
Yeah, it's kind of a red stuff. But they also make other target ammunition and stuff like that. It's a little bit pricier than standard stuff, but man, I gotta tell you, accurate, fast, and it's just really, really nice ammunition. And when I find a product that gives really good results, I got to bring it to your attention. Mills Ammunition, really, really good stuff. Check them out, and we'll see what happens. I'll get a video up soon where you guys can see this stuff in action. I'll throw up the chrono and everything. But next weekend, pay extra close attention to the Range Report YouTube channel, because we're going to be bringing you a plethora of videos starring myself, Michael Marshall, and a bunch of shit going boom. So, you guys stay tuned for that. Next week on the show, we're gonna bring some excerpts to you before we post them up live on the thing. Now, Friday night, if we can do it, pay attention to this channel. Michael and I might do a little live broadcast either Friday night or Saturday night. I'm thinking Saturday night. We might do a live broadcast of the live fire, glow in the dark tracer machine gun shoot. See if we can't do that. You won't see any guns, but you'll see a couple of million.
A lot of glowing.
Going, a lot of volley fire going off all at the same time. But until then, listen, we'll catch you guys next week. You guys, as always, be safe, shoot straight. I'll be on behalf of myself, Vasquez, Marshall, and Jan Rains. We love you. We'll catch you guys next week.